Okay, so you've been there, right? You ask an AI a question, and it gives you an answer that sounds super confident, but is just completely, totally wrong. It's a huge problem. But what if, and stick with me here, what if we could give that AI an open book exam for every single question we ask? Well, that is exactly what a technique called Retrieval-Augmented Generation, or, RAG for short, is all about.
See, here's the deal with these large language models, or LLMs. Their knowledge is basically frozen in time, stuck with whatever data they were trained on. This means they can get outdated fast, and it leads them to hallucinate, which is really just a nice way of saying they invent stuff. And that is the core problem we have to solve if we want to make AI something we can actually rely on.
And this is where RAG comes in. It's the solution. Think of it literally as an open book exam. Instead of just trying to remember an answer, the AI first goes and looks up relevant, fresh information from a trusted source, like a specific company database or a hand-picked collection of articles. Then it generates an answer. It sounds simple, but this idea is a game changer for factual accuracy, and it gives us a way to actually check the AI's work.
But of course, there's a catch. RAG isn't just a switch you flip and everything's perfect. No, it's a really complex system. And as some amazing new research is showing us, getting it right is all about fine-tuning all the little details. This is where it gets really interesting. So let's dig in.
Think of it like a soundboard with all these different dials you can turn. Researchers from the University of Tübingen decided to just systematically test all of them. They asked questions like, how big should the pieces of text we give the AI be? How often do we need to feed it new information while it's talking to us? And, maybe the most important one, can we actually teach it to be smarter about the information it's using?
So they ran all these tests, and their investigation led to two totally new techniques that gave them these massive boosts in performance. These are the big ideas that are really pushing what RAG can do. And honestly, the concepts behind them are surprisingly simple.
The first big idea is something they call contrastive in-context learning. I know, it sounds a little complicated, but the concept is just beautiful. It turns out the best way to teach an AI what a good answer looks like is to also show it what a bad answer looks like.
Okay, so a standard RAG system might get a prompt that just has a couple examples of good, correct answers. But with a contrastive prompt, you give it both a correct example and an incorrect one. Just that simple act of showing it, hey, here's the right way to do it, and by the way, here's a common mistake, helps the model build a much sharper sense of what makes a response high quality and factual. It learns to see the difference between good info and bad info.
So did it work? Oh yeah, it worked. On this super tough data set called MMLU, which covers 57 different subjects, everything from law to chemistry, this contrastive technique scored a 74.44 for factual accuracy. That was the highest score of any method they tested. It's pretty clear proof that teaching by contrast is incredibly effective.
Now for the second big idea, a technique the researchers call focus mode. I love this one. I like to think of it as giving the AI a highlighter. So instead of making it read a whole page from a textbook, you just highlight the one or two sentences that actually contain the answer it needs.
The process here is basically a three-step funnel. First, it does a really broad search to grab a bunch of documents that might be relevant. Then it narrows that down to find the most relevant documents from that pile. And then, here's the magic step. It breaks those final documents down into individual sentences and only pulls out the ones that are laser-focused on the original question. All the noise gets cut out, leaving pure, useful signal.
What's also cool is that this research busted some pretty common myths about how these RAG systems are supposed to work. It turns out some of the things that work best are actually, well, they're the opposite of what you'd expect.
All right, first up, the idea that more data is always better. I mean, it seems logical, right? If you give the AI a bigger library to pull from, it should be able to find better answers. But is that really true?
False. Turns out, the study found that jumping from a knowledge base of 1,000 articles all the way up to 10,000 made no significant difference. Quality and relevance are so much more important than just the sheer quantity of information. A small, well-curated library is way better than a massive, messy one.
And here's the second myth. When an AI is generating a long answer, you'd think it's probably best to keep feeding it new, relevant info every few words to keep it on the right path. But again, is that really the best way to go?
The answer is, again, a surprising no. This table shows this idea of a retrieval stride. Think of it like someone reading over your shoulder and constantly interrupting you. A small stride means they're shouting new facts at you every few seconds. Well, the research showed that this constant interruption actually messes up the model's train of thought and makes the answers worse. A larger stride, updating less often, lets the model keep its focus and actually create better, more coherent answers.
So after all this incredible testing, what does the perfect RAG system actually look like? Let's put it all together and build a playbook for anyone who wants to make their AI more factual and reliable. This bar chart right here tells such a powerful story. Using a score that measures factual accuracy, you can see the impact of these ideas. A basic RAG system gets you a decent score, around 54. Adding focus mode gives you a nice little boost. But just look at that jump from contrastive learning. That is a huge leap in factual accuracy, and it comes just from showing the model the difference between right and wrong. And here it is, your RAG playbook. Number 1, use contrastive learning. Teach that AI to tell a great answer from a bad one. 2, implement focus mode. Give it that highlighter. 3, focus on a high-quality, relevant knowledge base, because bigger is not better. 4, don't overwhelm the model. Give it some room to think with a larger retrieval stride. And finally, never ever forget that the initial prompt, the instructions you give the AI in the first place, is still incredibly important for getting the results you want.
So when you boil it all down, it points to this big shift in how we should be thinking. The challenge isn't just about giving AI access to a bunch of data anymore. It's about teaching our AI systems to be discerning, to weigh evidence, spot when things don't add up, and prioritize the facts that really matter. It's about teaching them how to think with the information we give them.
And that really leads us to the final, much bigger question, doesn't it? We are getting incredibly good at giving AI the right information and teaching it the mechanics of being factual. We're building better, more reliable tools every day. But the next great challenge is taking that next step. How do we move beyond just facts and start teaching it something that looks a whole lot more like wisdom?